Hey everyone, my name is Nicole, also known as Nikki Vegan, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about 7 pantry essentials that I think everybody should have in their pantry / refrigerator. These really are all-stars. I think they're game changers, and they're really what has made it easier for me to take pretty simple ingredients and turn them into very delicious and flavorful meals with not a lot of effort. And these items in particular are ones I don't think a lot of people have on hand, or you may have a few, but the way I came up with this list was because there were so many times I would see a recipe on Pinterest or YouTube or Instagram and the photo would look so good and I would get all excited to make it, but then I would scroll down and look at the ingredients and there was always one item that I didn't have. And a lot of times it was one item that I would think, okay, I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna make this recipe, but then come time to actually purchase the item, I would have doubts. I would sort of think like, oh, I'm not gonna use it, it's gonna go to waste, I'm gonna end up with this whole bottle just to make this one recipe. Do I really want to do that? And so I would end up not getting it, not making the recipe. But eventually some of these same ingredients kind of came up time and time again. So I started to kind of experiment with some of them and realized that not only did they add a lot of flavor to that recipe, but also they're really versatile and there's so many different ways to use them. And a lot of these are really great bangs for your buck as well. So I'm going to share what I have learned, pass that information, all that trial and error onto you. And I really hope that you guys will enjoy this video, get lots of good ideas. Thank you to Thrive Market for partnering with me on this video because that's where I like to get a lot of my pantry essentials. A lot of the same brands that I see at the regular grocery store are available on Thrive, except you'll see at the bottom of the little box of the item that it is discounted. So I love that. And if you've been wanting to try Thrive Market, there is a new membership option. You can join for 1 month or for 12 months. And if you click the link to join today, you will not only get 25% off your order, but you'll also get a free gift. And free gifts on Thrive look a little something like this. So click that link to join today. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well. And let's get into the first pantry essential. I use this all the time. If you've watched any of my videos, you know, which is why I wanted to do this as the first one because there's so many questions that I get and I'm gonna address all of them in this video. Tahini is a paste made from ground sesame seeds, and there's a lot of different kinds of tahini, but I think that good tahini is mild in flavor, it's slightly nutty, and it should be really thin and pourable, but also velvety and creamy smooth. I personally like to drizzle tahini onto whatever I'm making, whether it's sweet or savory. It adds kind of a creamy element to the plate as well as a little bit of nuttiness, and it's really delicious. But a lot of times it's used as one of the primary ingredients in hummus, and it's also used to make creamy tahini sauces. This is great on salad, it's great on grain bowls, and it can even be used in kind of a thicker version just by using a little bit less liquid to make a thick sandwich spread, kind of like a more nutritious alternative to mayonnaise. I will put a recipe for this down below, but there's basically hulled and unhulled tahini. Hulled means that the sesame seeds were soaked before the tahini was made, and that provides that lighter color, more mild flavor. Unhulled means that it was just ground whole, so then it's a little bit thicker, it's a little bit darker in color, it's much more bitter and astringent. Not really my favorite kind, so I look for hulled if possible, but unfortunately it doesn't usually say on the packaging a lot of the time, so what I look for is a light color and a very thin consistency. Tahini dressing though for the first time, it might be a little bit kind of intimidating because when you start to mix it, it actually goes from this really smooth, silky sauce to really thick and kind of chunky, and you're definitely going to think you did something wrong. You're going to think you messed it up, but don't worry, you're just going to keep stirring and you gradually add in liquid and eventually it becomes really, really nice and creamy. And then as it sits in the refrigerator, it will thicken up even more. So a lot of times I keep that in mind. Like when I make my vegan honey mustard dressing, I will mix it and it's a little bit thinner than I want, but by the time it has chilled in the fridge and I go to use it, it is perfect and creamy and delicious, and it makes a really awesome dressing that way. I have a golden tahini sauce recipe, which is one of my favorite salad dressings to make at the start of the week, and I have it in the fridge all week long to use for salads, but I also really love it as a dip for potatoes, or I will kind of put it as a sandwich spread, like make it a sandwich spread for burgers or for sandwiches or pitas or whatever, and it's so delicious. You guys, I'm gonna say it. Are we ready? Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire. Worcestershire sauce. I have two different brands here. I really like the Annie's Organic. This is the one that I can find all over the place, including Thrive Market, but it's usually in the ketchup aisle at most places. And also Thrive Market came out with a vegan version. Now, the original kind, the non-vegan kind, usually has anchovies in it, so watch out for that. But these two options do not, and I think these are total game changers because they add such a nice meatiness to every kind of like vegan meat alternative that you would make. Like in my beet and walnut veggie burgers like I showed in a recent video, and it's the Worcestershire sauce that gives it kind of a hearty, rich umami quality, and umami is kind of the flavor of meat or mushrooms. It's that hearty savoriness. And basically Worcestershire sauce, if you're like, what the heck is it? What does it taste like? It's kind of like a thick and savory soy sauce, and it has a bit of tang as well. It gets its tang from the vinegar. It usually has a blend of molasses and sugar for some sweetness to balance that. And then it's flavored with onions and garlic and usually spices like cloves. So it's really dynamic. And sometimes it even goes a little bit further to add a little bit more tang and zip with some tamarind, which gives it kind of a sour element. So like I said, I like to use it for veggie burgers. I use it for my meatloaf muffins and any kind of holiday nut roast. If I'm making a lentil nut roast for a meatloaf alternative, or for any kind of Wellington, if you want to make a mushroom Wellington, add a teaspoon of this into the mix along with the other seasonings, and it will add a depth of flavor and a richness that is super delicious and very hearty and satisfying. Okay, so for the next two items, I'm mostly going to focus on vegan baking because these are total game changers. One works as an oil substitute and an egg substitute, and this is going to be kind of like a vegan butter substitute. And the key is that it's refined. So you are probably very familiar with coconut oil at this point, but the one that I like to get is refined coconut oil. You can find this anywhere, but I really like making sure that it's refined because it's not going to impart a coconut flavor into your chocolate cake or your cookies or your frosting, or if you're melting chocolate down. Adding just a little bit of this really gives it a silkiness, a glossiness, and it majorly improves the texture of baked goods, everything from cookies to cakes to brownies to frosting to my chocolate salted toffee bites that are from my cooking class. One of my favorite recipes is basically a layer of saltine crackers. You make a caramel sauce on the stove, very simple ingredients, and you pour that on top, do another layer of the saltines, and then do melted chocolate on top of that, and then you cut it into like bite-sized pieces, or you can break it into kind of like the way that you do with chocolate bark. You guys, it will blow your mind. It is caramelly, it is crunchy, it is salty, it is creamy from the chocolate and chocolatey, and it is so good. But one of the ways that I get that really nice kind of snap in the chocolate is by making sure that I have a little bit of this on hand. And it does not add coconut flavor because coconut is delicious, but I feel like there's a time and a place where you want to add coconut flavor, and there's other times when you don't. And I know I said I was going to talk about baking, but I have also noticed that if I saute with a little bit of this, it really improves the savory flavors of something. So if I'm grilling up veggie burgers, for example, using a little coconut oil is just going to make them so delicious and flavorful. I'm not exactly sure why that is, like scientifically, but I have noticed that it's noticeably different than other types of oil. Now, an oil replacer that you might be familiar with is applesauce. I like to use unsweetened applesauce. I get a big jar of it because it is one of the most versatile items in my kitchen, because not only do I use it to kind of reduce some of the need for oil in baking, or if I'm making pancakes or anything like that, like when I make pancakes, for example, and it needs 3 tablespoons of butter, what I will do is I will do 2 tablespoons of unsweetened applesauce, and I will do 1 tablespoon of refined coconut oil, and that way I'm getting a little bit of that richness that oil provides, but I don't have to do all 3 tablespoons of oil. I can kind of sneak with having the 2 tablespoons of applesauce, and it really kind of holds on to moisture in the same way, and having that combination is the sweet spot. I know some people like to do all applesauce in place of oil, and you can do that, but it changes the texture. So that's my personal preference, is to do a little bit of a mix. But wow, it really makes a big difference, and I find that I like to use applesauce in baking as an oil replacer more than other types of oil replacers like mashed banana, because it's a little bit lighter, so you are able to get a bit more of a fluff. If you've ever tried to make applesauce pancakes versus banana pancakes, they're both delicious, and banana pancakes is one of my favorite things in the world, but they're going to be denser, and apple pancakes are a little bit fluffier and they don't necessarily have as strong of a flavor. They're more of like a classic pancake. The other thing I want to tell you about applesauce is that it is a really awesome egg replacer because apples have pectin. Pectin helps to bind things, and so eggs in recipes, they either bind or they lift, and usually it's both. So in a cake recipe, if you're looking for something to bind a cake or a cookie, if you're looking for binding, applesauce is a good way to go, but you will also need an additional leavener to kind of create that same balance that an egg would. Next up is toasted sesame oil. Now, there is a big difference between sesame oil and toasted sesame oil, and one of the easiest ways that you can tell is just by the bottle. Regular sesame oil looks kind of like a bottle of olive oil, and the toasted is much smaller, and it has a completely different flavor, and it's used in a very different way. But first, let's talk about what sesame oil actually is. So toasted sesame oil just means that they toasted the sesame seeds before they pressed the oil. And just like when you toast spices and that kind of like brings all their flavor back to life, the same is true for sesame seeds. I read this great article that I will link below that basically talks about the two different schools of thoughts when it comes to whether you should cook with it or just use it as a finishing oil. It does have a relatively low smoke point because the seeds were toasted going into the process. So if you use too high heat, it will toast the oil even more and make it kind of bitter and not flavorful. But I like to use this for my fried rice. For example, I make a cauliflower fried rice and I use this as the base to really start the flavor process straight away from the beginning, and it kind of just builds and builds and builds throughout the very quick cooking process. This whole thing takes like 5 minutes. This example basically starts with a little bit of sesame oil as the base flavor, and then you add the frozen cauliflower rice, frozen edamame, and veggies, and I just season that with some tamari, sriracha, and then something crunchy like roasted peanuts is really good, or cashews is great. And then I like to add a little bit of scallions as well. And all of those flavors work together to give you kind of a fried rice experience, but it's all a really super plant-focused, veggie-based dish that I really love serving as a side dish with some tofu. It's honestly delicious and super, super quick. And because of that sesame oil, you're getting a real depth of flavor, even though it came together so quickly. You can use a few drops of sesame oil to make noodle dishes, to make stir-fry dishes. It's really versatile in that way. But if you want to use it as a finishing oil, that means you're not going to heat it at all. And one of the ways that I like to do this is just to mash avocado, add a couple of drops, like 2 drops of some sesame oil and some salt and pepper. Sometimes I'll add some scallions too, or chives is really nice, but this is delicious and it's good on avocado toast, like as avocado toast, like a seasoned, more flavorful avocado toast. And I also really like kind of having a big dollop of this as the sauce on a grain bowl or a sushi bowl. So flavorful, and that bright, delicious toasted sesame flavor is so prominent, but you only need like 2 drops or 3 drops to make like a whole bowl of this avocado mash. Tamari is a little bit like soy sauce. I like to get the low sodium kind. This was the kind of thing that cropped up a lot when I first went vegan and I was looking at plant-based recipes. This was used a lot for what I thought was to add saltiness, but what I've learned over time is that it adds a lot more than just saltiness. It really adds like that umami quality again, that savory richness and a depth of flavor. So not only do I use this kind of, you know, in the traditional way, like I love to dip sushi into this, but I do really love using this to add depth of flavor to other things that you might not think of as well, like gravy or like my carrot ginger soup. Tamari is similar to soy sauce in that they are both made from soybeans, but tamari doesn't have wheat and soy sauce usually does. So that usually means that tamari is gluten-free, which makes this a great option if any of you have gluten allergies, and it's a little bit more mild in flavor. Chickpea miso is made by fermenting rice and chickpeas. It's usually aged for about 1 to 3 months, and the flavor that develops is a little bit stronger than a white miso, but much more mild than red miso, which makes it really versatile and something that you can use for sweet or savory options. It's also completely soy-free, so if anybody has a soy allergy, this is a great way to go. And this is basically what adds a layer of background flavor to soups and vegan burgers and sauces and gravies and dressings and seriously everything. It is so versatile. I've recently been experimenting with adding a little bit of miso paste, like a teaspoon of miso paste, to my mac and cheese sauces and cream sauces. What it does is it adds a layer of umami. And so the nutritional yeast that goes into my mac and cheese also has umami, which creates a nice background flavor, but adding a little bit of
of the miso also gives it a different kind of umami and some kind of saltiness and intrigue. So there's just layers of depth and flavor. And with the spices, it all kind of works together to create a really robust and flavorful sauce. And I like to kind of brighten everything at the end with a little squeeze of lemon juice or a tiny splash of vinegar just to kind of mimic that tang. So cheese is a little bit rich and savory and salty and tangy. And by kind of adding the nutritional yeast, the miso, the spices, the salt, and the lemon juice, you're also kind of creating that same effect without having to use any animal products at all.
It is so fun to play around with, and I really recommend getting these items, stocking your pantry, and I will make sure that all of the recipes are in the description box so that if you do go out and get these items, you will have lots to choose from. You can come back to this video and you will easily be able to get started with practicing with your new items. I really hope that this was helpful. If it was, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And if you have not tried Thrive Market, make sure you check out the link in the description box below. And if I missed any pantry essentials that you guys are like, hello, this is like my end all be all item, please comment below and let me know what those items are so I can stock up on them as well. And I hope you guys have a really great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in a video very soon. Bye everyone.